everybody, I'm Tom Vasel.
I'm Zee Garcia.
And today we're taking a look at a game called Snowcrest from Grail Games, designed by Philip Dubarry, and was an absolutely beautiful artwork here from Kiri Attican, I believe. And you can see that inside the box. See, look, a tiger. Woo! A tiger with a staff. Anyway, this is a card engine game.
Yeah, kind of resource management, tableau building a little bit. You're putting out cards in front of you, this 3x3 grid, and trying to manage that, your bits, your hand.
Well, Zee's about to show you how to play it.
There we go. In the game, the players are trying to achieve the most scrolls up here, which is a pool set based on the number of players. In this case, I will simulate a game with 2 players, so there are 20 of those scrolls up there. And the players are going to be gaining them from characters that they put out into play on their own player area, of which I'll just be showing you one. By completing these achievements up there, you'll earn some as well. And then from a couple of other different actions in the game, such as meditation, for example, where you'll be spending these bells and meditating in order to get those scrolls. Everybody begins with their own deck of cards, of which they'll shuffle up and draw 3 after selecting the 4 starting cards and putting them randomly in the corners. They have this symbol right here to let you know it's a starting card. You also have this omen track right here that begins with a token in the center, and I'll go ahead and point out now that all of these wooden pieces are from the Kickstarter edition of the game, whereas normally all of these bits here are simply cardboard, much like these buildings are, okay? So they would all look like that. That's the main difference, really. Each player on their turn is going to take one of these 3 actions, and everybody has in their own player color a player aid here that explains the 3 main actions. The first one is activate. You may activate a villager in your village by flipping it face down and taking one of the actions it lists. So for example, this herder up here, I could flip them face down and activate them to take 2 wheat here of that resource, which is going to let me pay for further characters, or I can flip them face down and draw 2 cards. You'll also notice when you flip one of these face down, only the 4 starting characters, they have a little symbol right here, and that's going to matter for when we do one of the other actions. Second option is to add a villager from your hand or from the row to your village here and activate that character. The ones from your hand that you begin that are in your deck, and the ones here from the display all have a cost right here in barley. It's not wheat, it's barley. And you can spend that, put them out onto the board somewhere that's empty or somewhere that's filled. You can cover up a place. Trigger their ability, and then flip it face down, okay? And so you'll be filling in this board as you do so. These characters are going to have some sort of ability at the bottom. So for example, if I had enough, because my first action had been the herder here, who gets me 2 barley from the supply and then flips face down, after my opponent takes a turn, perhaps my second action will be to hire the master herder right here for 4 barley. I will spend 4 of my 5, and I am going to take this character. I'll put them somewhere. I will activate them, gain 4 barley, and draw a card. So I'll draw a card from my deck into my hand, gain my 4 barley, and then it gets flipped face down like so. That could be my second action, hire a new person, and then we replenish the lineup. To show you the third and final option, I've gone ahead and jumped the game forward, so I've got some cards out here on my own personal play area. And this option is called resting. And to rest, you're going to have to rest when you have 3 cards in a row or a column, as you see here, or diagonally even, that are all face down. And resting involves taking all the resources showing on the backs, on the corners of the cards, as you see there and there, gaining all of that, and then flipping everything back up. Now, don't forget, these 4 starting cards in the corners, they show something on the back, but not the front. So you are encouraged to use them before you rest. And so if I was going to rest now, and indeed I have to because of these 3 face-down cards, then I'm going to gain 1 barley, 2 barley there. I'm going to gain 1 bowl, and 1 juniper, which comes from this card right here that I'll come back to. And I am going to gain 1 last barley there. And then all of the cards would be flipped face up like this. And that is the end of my turn. And that is the resting action. So again, activate 1 that's face up, pay for 1, and activate. And it can come from your hand or from here, or rest. Those are the 3 main actions in the game. Now let's talk about the symbols across the bottom of the cards and how they interact with these other things and what it is the cards actually do when you trigger them. Now, the symbols for collecting resources and cards, you've already seen that, getting barley here as well as drawing cards. You can get bowls here and bells there. There's also collecting juniper, and that's a little bit different. That comes from this card. This stack of cards, I should say, and that has the tokens for the juniper on them, set to 3 per player at the beginning of the game. And when it's emptied, you are going to deal with this card, which represents the forest and something bad that happens from you cutting down that juniper. And then you set it up again with 3 per player once more. And every time it's gone, you deal with the next card from the forest. So you might have to flip this over, and you have a curse, which you have to give something up for. If you can, you give it up. If you cannot, then your omens here are going to drop down, and that's going to be negative points at the end of the game. Your opponents have to deal with something, and then you get a reward, though, for appeasing the forest with these things you have to do. Then this card is gone, and we reset the stack here. There's also this symbol right here that lets you replenish all of your buildings. Your buildings are going to gather down here, and you can flip them over. This one you can flip face down to pay for 1 barley. You can flip this one over for a bowl, and you can flip one of these over for a bell. And if you get enough of these, you'll even get some victory points for that, some of the scrolls. So that's what they do, and they gather down there. This symbol here would let you bring them all face up again. This one here lets you spend 1 juniper to gain any 1 of any kind. A couple of final things I want to mention here. There are going to be some symbols that back off your omens. And so you can use this to move this way, gaining positive victory points possibly, or at least getting out of the negative ones. If you're ever down here at the -5 and would take another -1, you instead take a token that you'll not be able to get rid of, and that counts as 1 negative. So even if you back off, you'll always have this one to punish you. And then a couple of other things you'll be dealing with. Some things will give you the gold coins. These are wild for the bells, the barley, and the bowls. And you'll have these 2 symbols as well. That symbol there in blue and that symbol there in green. And they'll trigger special moments in the game that you are going to be dealing with. This one blue is called meditation, and this one in green is veneration. So let's talk about this one first, a little bit easier. You are going to be drawing a card from this deck with the matching dragon there. And it is going to be an abominable snowman, for example, or some sort of thing that you are dealing with, and you are taking an offering to the temple. This is what's required of you. This is what your opponents have to deal with because they didn't offer anything at the temple, so they have to pay something. And then here is your reward. You're getting 2 coins, which again are wild. You get to draw a card, and you get to take 2 scrolls, which are your victory points. Your offering, just like for your opponents, anything you cannot pay, you instead take an omen for. So you can always achieve this even if you don't know what's coming. But if you can pay for it without taking the omens, then you do that so it doesn't penalize you. So that is veneration. And then this final one in blue, which is meditation, is a little bit different. When you trigger that by flipping again the card face down, you are going to be offering up bells in order to gain the scrolls here. And this sort of happens like an auction. You'll say a number that you're willing to offer. So, for example, maybe I'll say 3 bells. The player after me could pay more than 3. They could pay 4 bells and gain one of these scrolls. If they do not, then I gain one. The player after them can pay more than my amount again. And if they do, they gain one. If not, I gain one. And then when it comes back around to me, then for all the ones I gained, if I gained nothing, I keep my bells. But if I did gain some, then I'll pay the bells I mentioned at the beginning of the once around, and the action is done. In a 2-player game, instead of it being a single scroll, because it's only one other player, then when you make an amount, say I say 3 bells I'm willing to pay, and the other player pays more than me, they get 2. If they do not, then I pay my bells and I get 2 scrolls. All right? So that's how that works. As far as paying for anything, you can always choose to discard a card from your hand, or flip a card face down, or flip a building to pay for that. So here's what I mean by that. Let's say my board looks like this, and I say 3 bells. I'm playing with, let's say, 3 players. The next player says pass. I take one of these. They cannot pay more. And there's a spot for these right here. The player after that player says pass as well. I get another one. Great. And then it comes back to me. I said 3 bells and I pay 1. I'm going to flip this face down to take this one. That's 2. And I'm going to flip this face down. And that's 3. And I'm good. That's the end of my action. I won 2 of those because the other players couldn't pay. And so that's pretty much the game. I also mentioned the achievements here. Whoever does these first is going to get these scrolls there. But basically, when all these are gone, we're going to finish out the round. And whoever has the most of those is going to be the winner of the game.
All right, so component-wise, I have a few. It's a mixed bag for me. And realize that this was, I believe, a Kickstarter. That I had some upgraded pieces for the tokens and all that.
And I mentioned it in the overview that the pieces are wooden, normally they're cardboard,
And that's fine and all. Mm-hmm. The cloth mat, not cloth mat, but it's like a...
Yeah, what is it even is that?
It's like the same thing your tablecloths are made out of. Like a sack. I would have been okay with a cardboard board.
Sure.
It curls up at the edges. Not a big deal. I think my biggest problem is that the cards themselves are a little bit themeless in the sense that they look like one is chopping trees down, and the color for those tokens is different than the card that it's on top of.
Yeah, and the dragon cards are brown with a tiny little bit of green, but the token is green, and so it's like, wait, hold on, There's there are a couple of small graphical issues like that. There's also, on the back of the rule book, they show you a symbol for discard a card. Right there. But when you get hit with a curse, and you're supposed to give up a card, it actually just shows you the draw a card symbol. You're clearly not drawing a card. The rule book says you should discard a card. So they have a symbol they're not using, at least on those many cards. There's a couple of issues like that. And to be fair, I think overall, there's a few things that feel like a bit more time and care could have gone into some of those small things.
I also feel like there's some missed opportunities. So the artwork here, which might be divisive, I'm not sure you like the artwork that much.
I like it fine. I mean, it's a weird,
It's anthropomorphic animals.
It is, but it's also slightly lazy anthropomorphic animals. It's just the head. And if you see their arms, they're arms. But they're not different in any way. The horse is the same size as the tiger, is the same size as whatever.
But on that note, they have this deck of monsters, and then they're just a word.
Yeah.
It's a tiger. It's a Medusa or whatever. I don't know
it's a monster. It's a demon snake.
And that's like, why didn't you... If you're going to make this whole monster, there's an enemy, but then it's just words. I felt that detracted a little bit from me.
Yeah, the theme they're selling you here is sort of this, up on a snowy crest, a monastery, you are trying to live in peace with the forest and the spirits that dwell there. That theme could have been pushed a little further and made a little more sense with some more theme in the artwork, certainly, and some of the actions.
Yeah.
I think the theme is kind of a cool theme that you didn't really shove onto the playing field enough. And I wish you would have.
So, all that outside, it's a nice package. The whole thing comes well, and the quality is there.
And I like a few other things before. I'm assuming you don't really like the game very much, so I'm going to say some more nice things about it. I I really do like the cards and the card play in this game.
Oh, I wasn't just talking about the...
You're going to drop an elbow on this game momentarily.
No. I was going to agree with... I think the card system, the idea of play a card, or buy a card, put it in there and it activates, or refresh, and then get all the stuff on the cards that you haven't turned over, which encourages you to refresh more often.
Right.
That is a brilliant idea. I don't know that I've seen that exact thing in another game, and I like it.
And the corner starting cards, which are a little weaker, they encourage you to use those because on the back they have a symbol.
Yes,
and you get that symbol if you refresh, and they've been spent, whereas everything else is a little different,
Right. No, I think that is a really cool system. I don't know that it plays out as cool as it is. Like, I would love to see that system done again in another game for me. I think that because it doesn't... It's... One of the problems with the system is your base cards aren't great, and they tell you that. They're not pretending that. And then you have cards in your own hand and deck, but you also have cards out there that you can buy, and the cards out there that you can buy are always better than the ones in your hand, usually. Not always, but they're at least better.
Well, the ones in your hand you can hang on to.
That's correct, and someone else won't buy them out from underneath you.
Right, and then at the end of the game you can also have them. You can discard them for the resources. You get a bonus at the end for having a lot of stuff left over. You also can discard them from your hand for the thing in the corner. Boom. And now suddenly... I have 2 more bells you weren't counting, accounting for. So I like that. So yes, I agree. You should buy from the center. Kind of buying from your own hand is secondary and should be, I think.
Yeah, it just feels, I don't know.
I think part of the thing with this game is it's still really nebulous as far as what's a good strategy, what's a bad strategy. I have a really hard time understanding... what's good, what's bad in this game? It's sort of a weird game.
Well, I can tell you some things that are bad.
Yeah.
Ignoring the bells, or the blue, or whatever that is.
Yeah.
Ignoring that completely, especially in a multiplayer game,
right,
is bad, because everyone is getting points but you at that point. Ignoring the objectives is bad. And all that comes down to the point that there is so few points in the game. The
game is too low scoring for me. That's one of my big detractors is everything worth, there are things in the game worth a couple of points that are very swingy, can be very random, and feel like, oh, you just walked into that. You didn't really do anything differently. That goal came up. It's one of the objectives. And you happen to be the first jerk who did the prayer action. Here's 2 points. 2 points is a big deal, and the winning score might be 21.
Well, it's even a bigger deal if you get 4 points, which I have scored in this game. Which obviously means it was my first game. I could have played better, right? But when an objective is 2 points and someone gets it on turn 1 or 2, and I've scored 4, I don't feel great about that.
Yeah, the game is definitely swingy, and personally, I think the objectives, the ones that sit across the top of the board, they're always worth 2 victory points, 2 scrolls. I would either get rid of them, I would have cut that out of the design, or made them more congruous. That right now, one of them is have these 5 buildings or 4 buildings, and the other one is be the first person to do this action. It's are you kidding me?
Yeah, one of those is way easier to do than the other.
Yeah, those 2 things don't mesh. That should not both be worth 2 points. Make them all about the same, or just jettison that whole idea. I think I have a problem with the way those come out. It's one of those things that when I do the random flip, I think if I play it again, I'd be like, yeah, we're not using that one.
Yeah, maybe. Or at least have some sort of rule that if one person does it on their turn and someone else does that same thing on their turn, they're going to both get those points. Or split them or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess this game is not a big game. And it's not necessarily pretending to be a big game, but it feels slight. For me, anyway. It has this card engine that never really takes off. You're like, ooh, I turn cards over, flip them, and get stuff. Sort of. You'll use them a few times over the course of the game because the game isn't particularly long.
Okay.
I don't like the cards that when you flip it, it does bad things to other people. it does worse to you, and you have to fight it off, but you're prepared for that, and you get a benefit, and everyone else just kind of sits there and goes, oh. And that's, again, in a multiplayer game, that's even more annoying because it's going to happen more often to you. And then, like you said, it's hard to figure out how to get points. The corruption track sounds more interesting, but you're usually forced down the corruption track rather than what would be like, I'll take corruption to get these resources. It's usually that.
I do find the game with more players to be slightly less swingy because of the prayer action, actually. Meditation is what I mean. The meditation action. In a 2-player game, when you do the meditation, you set a price. And this is such a weird mechanism anyway. It's kind of a bizarre thing. But you're like, I'm willing to pay 4 bells. And then in a 2-player game, the other player then pays 5, and they take 2 scrolls. Or they don't, and you take 2 scrolls. Kind of a big swing. If you're playing with 4 people, and I set it at 4 bells, then that person could be like 5, they take 1. Person across, they could also do 5, as long as they're doing more than me, 5, and they take 1, and this person passes, and I take 1. So with only 2 people, it's like a real, that's a swing of 4 points.
Yeah, but if everyone passes, if you save up, or even...
Yeah, then it's good. Then you're like 1, 1, 1. That feels better, and they didn't pay anything. It's my turn.
But to me, I don't like that mechanism because you say, I'll pay 4. That person goes, I'll pay 5 to take a point.
Yeah.
In a multiplayer game, that you don't get that point.
Yeah.
But it's better for them to just let you have that point and then do the same action on their turn and hope they get the 3 points.
Right. I agree with that. It's a weird mechanism, and I don't know, again, this game is hard for me to wrap my head around. Is it supposed to be that they should do it if I'm winning? I don't know. I can't tell. Is that the idea?
Yeah.
Because the game is so low scoring, should they do it if I have more points on the board than they do? I can't tell. I agree with you. I should just do what you're saying. Yeah, you can have a point. I'll just do it on my own turn. Get 1, 2, 3. Still, having said all that, there's a few things that get me fired up in this game because it's so close to being really, really good. As it is right now, I do enjoy the game. It's one I like playing. I think a big part of it is I like manipulating the cards. I like multiplayer. I like multi-use cards. I love the idea of being able to pay for something, drop it out there, get the thing. I'm working with my buildings. I'm getting all my resources. There's just every now and then a moment where I go, ooh, that didn't leave a good taste in my mouth, that moment in the game. All right, let me get back to it. Buy this guy, hire them, refresh everybody, get a bunch of stuff. For me, this one's going to get a 7. It squeaks into a 7 for me. I like the card system and the game play. I think I'll avoid it at 2. I think I'll play with more than that. Because I don't like the lack of players affecting each other and self-balancing and being like, oh, no, you don't get away with that, or buying something that somebody else wants. In a 2-player game, the swinginess of those things seems pronounced.
No, that makes sense.
So that's where I'm at, coming down at a 7.
I'm slightly lower at a 4. And I think part of it is, if I'm being honest, I think part of it is because I was not necessarily pumped about the game, but going through the rules that first time, that card mechanism had me so excited. Yeah. And it just feels wasted on me. That whole put cards out, flip them, do that. I'm like, oh man, manipulating grids. This is very similar to a big game we played, Tidal Blades 2, which has that whole thing about putting stuff in a grid, then activating rows, and oh man, so neat. And then I'm collecting some resources, and I feel like so much stuff is out of my power. People are affecting me with cards they do.
Sure.
There's a card I want. Oh, someone else bought it. Oh, someone got that objective I want. And I never felt like, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll just build my little engine up, I guess, and then the game's over. And it just feels so unsatisfying. It's like I saw a really good meal and I ate it and I'm disappointed. Sure. That's worse than that trash meal over there, which I wasn't expecting to like anyway.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So I get it. I think some people will enjoy this. I really do. So I'm just one person. And the people that we played it with had fairly mixed reactions. No one loved it. I'm probably the lowest, I think, of people.
But I'm also probably the highest. Be aware of that. And that's important for you, the viewer, to know. because I've heard a lot of mixed reactions also from everybody I've played with, and it's the same thing. We're giving you kind of the two extremes here.
Yeah.
Tom seems to be coming down the lowest. I also love multi-use cards. I really like the system. I really like the resource management. So I'm coming in as high as it gets from what we've seen. So
Well, there you go. That's Snowcrest. I'm Tom Vasel.
I'm Zee Garcia.
We'll see you next time. Hey everybody, thanks for watching another video from the Dice Tower. Hey, you want to learn more about us, communicate with us? We have a Facebook group, we have a Discord channel, lots of different ways to get involved with the Dice Tower. You can find that in our Linktree link below. So just click that, it will take you and you can communicate with us on Facebook, join our Facebook groups. There's lots of cool things that you can find and become part of the Dice Tower. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Tom Vasel.